something else. But I was just talking about a trend. There's a different trend that I wanted to talk about. Obviously we have, whether little or big reservations about the UK intervention, or any government intervention really, of any country. So I've viewed a couple of my opinions. Obviously I was against most of it, and I had some of my own friends telling me, wait, if you're so against the UK government, why do you still live here? You know? Why don't you just leave England? Why don't you go back to the country you came from? You know, we love Britain, this, that and that. And I said, well, okay. I mean, I wanted to quote somebody here. I'm not a fan of Americans in general, but I'll quote an American here. It's Benjamin Franklin. And he goes, it's the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. See, governments are there to work for us. They're supposed to help us. They're supposed to represent us and our views. If the tax money that I'm paying is going towards certain proxy wars or interventions or invasions, I have a right as a citizen, as a resident of Britain, to voice my opinion whether I agree with it or not. See, and the way governments have been working lately, it's changed. Because we would like to think that the government is working for us, but instead, obviously, nowadays it's become that we are working for the governments. And this trend has sort of been changing. I was talking about trends as well. It's changed, think about it, about just over 100 years ago, just before the First World War. If you think of any, I don't know, maybe if you haven't really seen any wars or read about wars, you probably watched movies of old wars. You know, you've got one army on one side, other army on the other side, and the leader, the king, the general, whoever he may be, is always, always, always leading the charge. He's always at the front, motivating everybody else. But then came obviously First World War, and then things changed. You see the leaders going in from the back, trying to obviously strategize, and then sending everyone else's cannon fodder, to be killed. And it's different. And this is when trends started changing. This is when people started changing from a government leading you and motivating you and becoming your role models and working for you, to suddenly the government becoming above you, and you're having to abide by their every single rule without having to be able to voice an opinion. So I was speaking to my friend obviously about this, and we got into a bit of a heated debate. And at the end of the day, obviously, we agreed to disagree. But I still think till this day, if you are in any country you're in, no matter what world, and whether you're a resident, a citizen, a taxpayer, you have the right and the responsibility to voice your opinion if you disagree with some of the policies they are making. Or else it wouldn't be a democracy. Aside from that, I'll start with my poem, and I've got to sort of get shooting off soon. We came from a place with roots. We wore sandals instead of boots. And when our trees were fully grown, we were the ones to enjoy its fruits. But then came 1884 and we couldn't do that anymore. They started plotting for us. It was colonization galore. They surrounded us with troops. The Europeans wanted the glory. So here's me telling the story of my parents before me. They took away their voice, but now I'm here, they can't ignore me. They divided us into groups as if we were a category. See, a lot of the things have changed, and not many people have minded. So I always like to use my voice to keep people reminded. When they took away our voice, a lot of times they took away our choice. So I'm just here standing as a single person, obviously, for everyone else, trying to make some noise. So I'll repeat the last few lines just so it goes back into your minds. They took away their voice, but now I'm here, they can't ignore me. They divided us into groups as if we were a category. See, what we knew as family, they started calling it a tribe. They divided us with a ruler. Who gave them the right to decide? They made slaves out of our brothers, but they remained strong inside, and no matter how humiliated they could never remove our nation's pride. So we fought and we fought, unwilling to give up the battle, and never did they expect soldiers to rise from our people who herded cattle. And as knights sitting on a horse's saddle, we had a common enemy. Until this day, our parents' bravery remains etched in our memory. But then came the 1950s and 60s. and the colonialists were finally defeated. And peace and justice for those who remained is what we really needed. But we were so used to fighting. A fresh struggle was igniting, one from which there was no hiding, one more electric than lightning. See, what we knew as family, now that the colonial war was over, was no longer a family. Tribes is what they began warring over. So our parents' struggles were bursted quicker than bubbles. Instead of sticking together, our parents started more troubles. They poisoned their children's minds instead of living off of nature's gifts. And all those that were innocent, hardly any of them still lives. See, we went from a chance at democracy to warlords becoming rulers, from intellectuals trying to school us to politicians trying to fool us. So we changed our status quo, from having a common enemy and being equal, to brothers killing brothers, to the seeing new enemies instead of their people. And from that era was born a generation with the nation's burdens, a generation born into a time where they saw their fathers wrapped and buried in curtains. So now we've come to an age where we can make a change and write a new page in our history. We've come to an age where we can take the stage, but here's the mystery. We don't, or we won't. I don't know, you decide which one of the two is worse. See, the poison that destroyed our parents has been passed down to us as a curse. So now a new generation is infected, the orphans are still neglected, so they become child soldiers to be feared, because to be feared is to be respected. And to those that were taken away by their parents to escape the government, don't want to return to the motherland, because wherever they are now, they're loving it. And some have formed a covenant, whilst others have feel that they've become activists. And social media has transformed the actionless to be seen with videos of thousands of active hits. So now they have a platform, a podium of attention from which they can now speak. If they don't use that podium to help others project their voices, does not that podium look bleak? See, the children of revolutionaries have become a generation to whom a revolution is scary. We need to start changing our minds to spark a psychological revolution fairly. See, our plan for you and I, to work together, to make our children nothing but amazing. Unless you work against me like our parents did, then it's something worse that they'll be facing. Thank you. Well,